Namibia, a desert country, but not all deserts are equal. Home to incredible wildlife and an endless supply of spectacular landscapes, Namibia is without a doubt one of the greatest road trip destinations on our planet. So we made a plan. We'd drive the length of Namibia, from South Africa to the Angolan border and back again. And of course, we'd be taking the back roads. Join us as we explore Namibia. We were crossing into Namibia from South Africa via a bridge over the Orange River between the towns of Alexander Bay and Oranjemund. This would be the start of a massive 7,000-kilometer loop taking us all the way to the northern border with Angola, before turning around and heading back to South Africa. After we got our paperwork done at the border, we drove into the small town of Oranjemund, where we were surprised to find Namibia's national animal wandering the streets. Oryx, or gemsbok, are completely adapted for life in the desert and can go for months without drinking water, getting almost all the moisture they need from the plants they eat.
Hello.
To conserve water, they can even concentrate their urine and raise their body temperature up to 46 degrees Celsius to reduce sweating. We made a quick stop in the small town of Oranjemund to fix a shock absorber mount we had broken back in South Africa, and then made our way east. The roads here followed the Orange River, which marks the natural border with South Africa. The 2,400-kilometer-long river starts high up in the Drakensberg Mountains of Lesotho. Southern Namibia is extremely dry, and the Orange River is one of the few sources of water in the region. Namibia's landscapes are seemingly always changing. We passed from the sandy Namib desert region to the mountains of the Great Escarpment, driving through some rare desert rains in a landscape that could easily be mistaken for a different planet. We were in search of a camp spot for the night, which is surprisingly easier said than done. Despite the low population density, Namibia heavily restricts or outright bans wild camping and off-roading in many areas to help protect the environment. About 45% of the country is under some form of conservation. Namibia was also the first country in Africa to incorporate environmental protection into its constitution. Eventually, towards evening, we found a spot among the rocky hills of southern Namibia, under the first of many rainbows to come.
Sitting in the rain, first night in Namibia. Max, I got you some.
No way. Oh my god. I never would have thought. Yes. That crazy. It's gonna be noisy as hell.
The next morning we saw a troop of chakma baboons in the distance, which can be found throughout Namibia and are infamous for their destructive nature, often breaking into tents, cars, and even homes to steal food. We got on the road and made our way further east. Our plan was to head to Ais and then the Fish River Canyon. This route would take us temporarily out of the mountains and into the open deserts of the Central Plateau. With no air conditioning in our 1987 Hilux, we were feeling the full effect of the desert heat. And just when the landscape seemed as inhospitable as ever, we spotted some wildlife. First, a small antelope, and then 3 ostriches, a male with 2 females. Despite being able to hit speeds of up to 45 miles per hour when they run, these are the largest and heaviest birds on the planet, standing up to 9 feet tall and weighing over 300 pounds. we couldn't help but feel a bit like we were back in time. After seeing ostriches up close in this kind of environment, it's really no surprise why birds are often considered living dinosaurs. After some more desert driving, we arrived at Ais. While this is a sort of resort that offers camping, we had no intention of staying the night. While we had only just crossed into Namibia, we had been camping in South Africa's backcountry for some time, and our solar shower was hardly enough to keep up with the heat and dust of the desert. Here we would pay a reasonably small day fee to cool off using the resort's showers and pool facilities. Afterwards, we made our way to the Fish River Canyon, which is the largest canyon in Africa and one of the largest in the world. While the temperatures here can regularly hit over 40 degrees Celsius, archaeological evidence suggests that our human ancestors have lived in the area for at least 50,000 years. The Fish River itself started carving the current path of the canyon about 50 million years ago. The canyon is home to a variety of birds, reptiles, and mammals, including Cape cobras, mountain zebras, and even jaguars. It's about 160 kilometers long and up to 550 meters deep. Since hiking into the canyon is only allowed in the winter months, we enjoyed driving around to some of the viewpoints instead.
Oh my god.
We were making our way further north in search of fuel and a camp spot. Ais was supposed to have a fuel station, but they were out. This brought us to a pretty interesting stop in the desert called Canyon Roadhouse. There was a whole bunch of cool vintage cars and a well-done old Americana-style bar, but by the time we got there, it was getting late and the pump attendant had already gone home. Luckily, our spare jerry cans were still full, so we filled up and headed out to find a camp spot. Despite all the desert driving, we couldn't find a decent wild camp spot in the area and finally caved in and headed to the town of Keetmanshoop.
Kind of cool, actually. It's ingenious. It stays cool. If it rains, your tent doesn't leak.
It's totally practical. We got for the guest.
You got even a
Got
singular,
one bed.
a single bed.
Overall, Namibia is a very safe country, but some spots do have some questionable people walking around, and this town is one of them. After finally doing a good resupply at a proper grocery store, we made our way west, back towards the coast. This area is home to the wild Namib desert horses. The origin of these feral horses isn't clear, but it's thought they descended mostly from escaped domesticated horses. There's an estimated population of 90 to 150 individuals, and they're found in the Garib Plains near Aus. After heading further west, we found ourselves in the small coastal town of Lüderitz. Everything was closed since it was Sunday, so we just passed through to head to the nearby peninsula for some wild camping. Here we ran into a flock of flamingos. Namibia is a major habitat for two species of flamingos. The larger and more pale pink, greater flamingos, and the smaller and more vibrantly pink, lesser flamingos. From here, we drove around the peninsula until we were able to find a nice spot near the water that provided us with some much-needed shelter from the strong coastal winds.
Hyenas?
I don't know what that was.
There is no better time to camp than after a fresh resupply. While there are brown hyenas in this part of Namibia, they're quite elusive, and we did not get to see any. There's little doubt why sailors avoided this coast for many centuries. Besides the strong freezing Benguela current coming up from Antarctica, frequent dense fog, and heavy surf, there's nearly no natural harbors. After leaving camp, we spotted a jackal, and then some more flamingos near the water while we scoped out the abandoned Halifax Island, which is a breeding ground for African penguins. We didn't see any, and decided to take a longer route back around the peninsula, which was a bit more technically challenging for the old Toyota. The drive back would once again take us through the town of Lüderitz. The town here is named after its founder, Adolf Lüderitz, who arrived in 1883. This would essentially become the first foothold in what would become the colony of German Southwest Africa. Soon after, a railroad was built to move troops, supplies, and German settlers further inland. Modern-day Lüderitz relies mostly on fishing and tourism for its economy. We stopped to grab some lunch before heading further inland ourselves. Afterwards, we made our way to Kolmanskop, an abandoned mining town only 6 kilometers away. This town was a product of a massive diamond rush that fueled the growth of Lüderitz back in the early 20th century. These are all essentially pieces of the historical puzzle that was the German colonization of Namibia. Once the Germans started taking over and exploiting Namibia, conditions became progressively more difficult for the Herero and Nama people. Faced with forced labor, violence, racism, brutality, and having their lands and cattle stolen, the Herero and Nama people started to push back in 1904. The Germans responded with the Nama and Herero genocides, killing an estimated 80,000 to 100,000 people. Just off Lüderitz is Shark Island, where the Germans had built a concentration camp. Forced labor from that camp was used during the construction of the railroad, and in 1908, Zacharias Luala, a Nama man, found a diamond while working on the Lüderitz-Aus Railway. From there, Kolmanskop was built, and the diamond rush started. Eventually, the diamond fields around Kolmanskop were depleted, and much richer diamond fields were discovered down south near Oryx, where we started our trip. Most of the diamond mining companies and workers moved south in the mid-1930s, and gradually Coleman's Cop emptied out and was left to be taken back by the desert. Nowadays, besides being able to walk through the abandoned town, there's also a museum you can visit, which mostly covers the evolution of diamond mining in Namibia up to the modern day. Our favorite stop was the Diamond Smuggling Room, which covers a variety of ways that employees have tried to smuggle diamonds out of the mines.
What do you think of that?
That's how I would do it.
If you're wondering why people report their coworkers for trying to smuggle a diamond out, it's because the company gives a reward to the informant in the value of 50% of whatever's recovered. After backtracking east, we made a quick stop in the town of Aus to grab some much needed oil for our thirsty, carbureted 4Y. Here we passed over that very same railroad that leads from Luderitz all the way back to Keepman's Hope. We then turned north in search of some wild camping.
The deed, they got her signature.
The notary testified to that, but
Look at our assortment.
Believe it or not, we're drinking again.
Dill pickles. Some spring onion crackers. Some non-refrigerated cream cheese. And
Refrigerations.
your finest unspecified red wine.
Red wine.
In the morning, we packed up to start a long driving day north. On the way out, we passed by a small World War I military cemetery. The cemetery is shared both by Commonwealth and German soldiers. They were part of the Southwest African campaign, though many in this camp died from the Spanish flu while either imprisoned or working in the nearby prisoner of war camp in Aus. To our surprise, even here in the true desert, there was evidence of recent rain. We stopped at a small roadside cafe run by a very nice lady, who told us that in her memory, it was the first time it had rained here in years. While we enjoyed our coffee, cake, and conversation with our host, a small bird came by. This is a sociable weaver, and while small and somewhat plain in appearance, these are the engineers of the bird world, building the largest nests in the world.
And he just eats cake crumbs, not bread. Very picky.
We were taking the C-27, a back road that runs hundreds of kilometers through mostly protected desert. These were some of the hottest days we've ever experienced on the road. There's no water here, only illusions. Remember the little sociable weaver back at the cafe? These are the nests they build. They can last over 100 years, weigh up to 1 ton, and house up to 500 birds. But these are community nests, often used by a variety of bird species, as well as small mammals and even reptiles. Suddenly, the dry sandy landscapes made way for some greenery as we approached yet another desert curiosity. This is the To Ethosha Castle, another relic from the German colonial era. It was built by Baron Captain Hans Heinrich von Wolff in 1907. The red stone was obtained locally, but many materials like wood, iron, cement, and lamps were shipped in from Germany. Italian bricklayers and carpenters from Sweden and Ireland were brought in to build the castle. In 1914, while on their way to Europe, World War I broke out. The Baron snuck back into Germany to join the army, but was killed in the infamous Battle of Somme in 1916. His wife decided not to return to Africa, and the castle was shifted around from one owner to another for some time, and then ultimately the government bought it in 1979 to be used for tourism. We spent the night at a paid campground not too far away from the castle, and in the morning, on our way out, we saw some movement in the distance. A few giraffes had crossed the road up ahead. Standing up to 18 feet tall, these strange-looking creatures are by far the tallest animal on Earth.
This is really what we call overlanding. Really hits that spot, really.
Yeah.
Because when I'm looking at it, like it shows like as if it's like from a farmer, because a lot of farmers have such things, those ones, so you get stuck. That's what I'm saying, don't be surprised me asking you such things.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Alright, man, it was nice to meet you, eh?
Alright, guys, you guys enjoy your journey.
Alright.
Cheers.
Alright, just take care of that car, please.
Yeah, we will.
Alright, guys.
On our way north, we ran into some zebras. Namibia is home to two species of zebra, the plain zebra and the Hartmann's mountain zebra. They seem to be a group, or rather a dazzle, of plain zebras, identified by the stripes on their bellies. Mountain zebras prefer the rocky areas along the Great Escarpment and are almost endemic to Namibia, though some have been sighted in the far southwestern corners of Angola. We were making our way to the iconic Deavlei. The last couple hundred kilometers would take us through a variety of landscapes. Deavlei is located in the Namib Desert, the oldest desert on Earth. Coming up to the small town of Sesrime, we hit paved roads. The town here acts as the literal gateway to the famous desert. After picking up a day permit at the gate, we made our way into the park. The drive-in takes over 40 minutes on smooth paved roads, but the last section is a spiderweb of sand tracks leading to a small, sandy parking lot. Finally, at the end of the drive, there's a 20-minute walk to Deavlei itself. Deavlei translates to dead marsh. The iconic dead trees here are called camel thorns, and they're estimated to be about 900 years old. It's so dry that instead of decomposing when they died, they fossilized. The ground is a white clay pan, making for one of the most unique landscapes we've ever seen. The Tsashau River used to water these trees, but when the sand dunes shifted, they blocked the flow of water, and Deavlei was formed. The dunes are always moving with the wind, with some large ones moving at an average of 9 meters per year. In contrast, nearby Sossusvlei still has living camelthorn trees. They're able to access deep underground water because of their taproot system, which can reach depths up to 200 feet deep. While heading back, we took our time to stop at some of the famous dunes that make up the Namib Desert.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
All right.
In one single day, we had seen some giraffes, zebras, and now 900-year-old fossilized trees in the oldest desert in the world. But the day wasn't done, and not long after, we found ourselves driving towards another rainbow. Under the rainbow, we found some more ostriches roaming around. And just when we thought it couldn't get any better, a giraffe crossed the road in front of us, and not far behind came her calf. And so, one of the most iconic days we've had in overlanding came to an end. We were camping under a sociable weaver's nest. This one was home to some rosy-faced lovebirds, and while these birds are common pets in some countries, they're endemic to Southwest Africa. It was the off-season for tourism in Namibia, and since we had the whole campground to ourselves, we decided to spend an extra day and just relax. From here, we would be heading to the country's capital before exploring more of the backcountry. We made a quick stop in the small settlement of Solitaire to pick up yet some more oil for the Hilux and snacks for us. Namibia's tourism revolves around overlanding and safaris, and more often than not, the few vehicles you see on the back roads are the typically white rental 4x4s with roof tents, or 4x4 game viewers or shuttles like this extended Land Cruiser. We even saw one of these chopped and extended 6-door Land Cruisers fitted as a rental with 3 roof tents. As we made our way closer to Namibia's capital, the scenery started to change yet again. Suddenly, everything was becoming more green, and there was even grass starting to sprout. One last climb would take us up to the central plateau, and from here, things would really start to look different. The road up was full of these armored bush crickets. These cannibalistic crickets sit in the road, feeding on the dead, and then get crushed by passing traffic, thus repeating the cycle. The top of the climb brought us into a completely different environment. arid desert was replaced by rich green grass, trees, and plant life. Besides the change in elevation, we were also passing through the Tropic of Capricorn, one of the 5 major circles of latitude. The Tropic of Capricorn is the southernmost latitude where the sun can be directly overhead and forms the southern boundary of the tropics. We made it to Windhoek, the capital of Namibia. It's a relatively young city, founded in 1890 by a German colonial officer. The whole city sits at around 5,500 feet in elevation, and we only passed through here to resupply and get some errands done before heading north. It didn't take long for us to start seeing these massive termite mounds everywhere. Standing up to 20 feet tall and 100 feet wide, each mound can house millions of termites. We soon turned west to head back to the coast, electing to take a back road in search of some wild camping. The recent rains had caused dozens of washouts to form, and while they weren't technically challenging in any way, they did slow us down quite a lot. We had made camp at night far in the desert, away from any light pollution, and were gifted with an incredible night sky. We had a big day planned ahead of us, even by Namibia's standards, and got on the road after having breakfast. We made a quick stop when we saw a lappet-faced vulture. These birds have wingspans up to 10 feet across, and while it's hard to tell on video, this one was huge. Finally, we joined the main road that runs from Windhoek to Walvis Bay. This town is home to Namibia's largest port. We were heading to the beach. To get there, we would navigate a road carved between salt flats, which also happens to provide an ideal environment for flamingos. There was once a flock of flamingos 50,000 strong recorded here. We were heading to the famous Sandwich Harbor, and the last step was to air down for the soft sand ahead. The Sandwich Harbor route requires driving below the tide line between massive sand dunes. Our long drive in the morning made us late for low tide, so we decided to see if we could make it through the dunes first. It didn't take long to figure out our little carbureted 4-cylinder wasn't up to the task. While we found a way around the first dune, we eventually couldn't go any further and headed back. We weighed our options, and after checking the tide charts, we decided to just sit it out and wait for the next low tide, which was in the evening. Finally, it was time to go for it. We were the only vehicle out, and to be honest, adrenaline was running quite high. Getting stuck here could be a big problem when the tides shift. We were running 10 psi in the tires, and the tide was still going down, so all was well. We even ran into a few jackals. Eventually we got to the end in the old donkey, and the only thing left to do now was drive back out. We arrived to our makeshift camp in the dark that night, finding what little shelter we could from the wind behind a small dune. It was a particularly windy night, and the road through the salt flats almost looked like it was covered in fresh snow. After all that salt, we felt like the Hilux had earned a car wash. From here, we'd make our way a little further north to the town of Swakopmund. Swakopmund is a popular seaside resort town. Founded in 1892 by German colonists, it shares the German colonial architecture style of many other towns in Namibia. But we only passed through on our way north to Namibia's Skeleton Coast. Namibia's Skeleton Coast is known for its numerous shipwrecks. Heavy fog, heavy ocean swells, strong winds and shifting sands have left an estimated 500 shipwrecks on this stretch of coastline. All along the coast are massive salt pans. While driving the C-34 north, you can find various crystals for sale along the road, most of them salt crystals. The cold Benguela current that runs from Antarctica north along southwest Africa makes the waters off Namibia's coast rich in biodiversity. Fishing is popular here, and Skeleton Coast is also home to the world's biggest Cape Fur seal colony. We passed by some red lichen fields before turning off the coastal road and heading deeper into the desert, once again in search of some wild camping. We were soon passing through fields of welwitschia. This is one of the oldest living plants in the world, with some individuals being up to 2,000 years old. This region of the desert gets almost no rain at all, and welwitschia mostly get the moisture they need from the heavy fog that comes through the area. Once again, we were completely alone, heading deeper and deeper into the desert in an area that seems to have been mostly neglected. But this is no ordinary stretch of desert. We were driving into Namibia's Mesem crater. At 20 kilometers wide, the crater itself isn't visible from the ground, but it is visible from space. This crater isn't the result of an impact, but rather a supervolcano that collapsed in on itself roughly 135 million years ago. In the morning, the heavy fog that waters the wellwood shea plants rolled in. After topping off the fluids in the old Hilux, we got back on the rough washboard roads to make our way towards the coast. Sometimes you just get this feeling like the truck's gonna rattle itself apart. Once we hit the main road, we aired up and turned back north. At the southern gate of Skeleton Coast National Park, we were told recent rains had caused minor flooding on the road ahead, but it shouldn't be much of an issue. This was really nothing compared to what we'd see further north in Namibia. Skeleton Coast National Park has a few stops where you can look at some old rusty metal, both in the water and on land. But what's really interesting about the park is that there's a small group of 12 desert-adapted lions in the area. And it's not just lions that have adapted to these parts. Namibia is also home to rare desert-adapted elephants, which have even developed softer feet to help them walk on sand. To continue further, we turned east, away from the coast, driving across the almost extraterrestrial landscapes of the Etendeka Plateau, formed by thick layers of basalt lava over 130 million years ago. We made our way out of the park's east entrance, driving through a winding landscape of red hills, when we suddenly spotted a giraffe by the side of the road. He was the first of many we'd see in this area. Despite their long necks, giraffes only have 7 vertebrae, just like humans. Namibia's landscapes and wildlife are truly beyond anything we've ever experienced. After another long day on the road, we found ourselves in Kamanjab. We spent a few days here at Apikapi Lodge, where we were neighbors with a vicious ostrich. The final portion of the trip I would complete solo. I'd driven Nikki to Windhoek, where she flew out before me, and for my part I decided to head back north, finding yet another empty lodge just south of Ethosha National Park. The constant rain had turned the northern portion of Namibia nice and green, and even before entering the park I saw various antelopes everywhere. From a safari point of view, the rain would make things pretty difficult. The dry season often sees animals gathering at the few watering holes around the park, but now there was water everywhere and the wildlife would be completely spread out. But just when I thought I was out of luck, sitting at one of those very watering holes, an African elephant came strolling out of the bush. Weighing up to 14,000 pounds, with a shoulder height of 13 feet, this is the largest land animal on our planet. I didn't see many other animals, and so after some more driving around, I eventually made my way out of the park to find a camp spot. The next day, I quickly packed up during a pause in the rain and started heading northwest towards the Angolan border. This was one of the craziest drives I've ever had. Stretches of road kilometers long were completely underwater, and the rain fell so hard I almost couldn't see. At one point, even lightning struck so close beside me that my ears were ringing, and I hardly ended up recording anything at all. All my focus went into driving, but fortunately, eventually I hit some high ground and the weather calmed down. I was glad to be back on the main roads for a little while, but after passing through Opuo, things would get worse again. The police had told me that the tour vehicles had all turned around that morning due to high water, but with the rain having slowed down the last few hours, I decided to give it a shot anyways. The drive to the Angolan border was pretty uneventful, though with quite a few water crossings. I ended up making camp at a lodge once again. The Canine River here forms not only Epupa Falls itself, but also the natural border between Namibia and Angola. From here, I only had to walk a few minutes to reach Epupa Falls itself. One benefit of all the rain was that the falls were at full force. A local man showed me the way to cross a stream to get to the main waterfall, and from there, I was on my own. Epupa Falls has over 100 small waterfalls, and there's a short hiking trail to some various viewpoints. The falls here are also home to ancient baobab trees, many estimated to be well over 1,000 years old. The way back was a bit more relaxed, with water levels having gone down. With the extra space in the truck, I got into the habit of giving local hitchhikers rides, and on one of the trips, we blew out a rear tire. It was a small miracle these tires had survived as long as they did, considering they were over 10 years old and dry rotted. But just as we changed the back right one, the guys noticed a leak on the other side. Always carry a tire repair kit. I was trying to cover lots of miles these days, with a goal to leave the truck in Cape Town, South Africa. But the very next day, while giving yet another guy a ride, we ran into some floodwaters. Things looked pretty sketchy, so we decided to wait it out and hope the water levels would drop. The grader going across didn't give us much confidence, but we were happy to let one of the 4x4 rentals risk their lives before confirming it was possible for us to make it across. Having barely driven another 2 hours, I now had to cross the Huab River alone. The going was slow. The washouts were every few hundred meters, and in some areas, even the entire road had been washed away. Most of the roads in Namibia are gravel, and the constant grading to smooth them out leaves berms at the edges. It looked like with the heavy rains, these very berms had worked to funnel the water down the road instead of keeping it out. I camped my way down to South Africa, with a stop in Swakopmund to figure out the end plan for this trip. The water had killed all the electronics in the car, including the starter, and I became reliant on random groups of strangers to push start the car while heading south. The rains didn't let up, and fortunately I took the back road south because just when I left, the main bridge south of Windhoek washed away. The poorly placed inverter also nearly burned down the truck, but eventually I found myself crossing the Orange River once again, this time leaving Namibia.